I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
if Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
It's not just an evolving of cinema, but it's a revolution. It's even bigger than the revolution that sound brought to cinema. It's the revolution of cinema itself. Back 120 years ago, 115 years ago.
It's funny you mentioned this. That's the Marvel formula. If you look at Iron Man.
No. Conception of what a film is and where it's to be seen has now changed so radically.
It's funny you mentioned this. That's the Marvel formula. If you look at Iron Man.
No. The value of a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks. That's a different experience, and I was saying earlier, it's not cinema, it's something else.
But Feige has always said.
Hello, and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
Coming next summer, Scorsese v. MCU, Dawn of Actual Cinema.
So Martin Scorsese and many other famous filmmakers have kind of brought a fire to the MCU lately about how the MCU does filmmaking. Is it really cinema? Well, that's the question that everybody wants answered. And what does Martin Scorsese really mean? The MCU is not cinema.
So this is from an ET Online article. Earlier this month, the legendary director said that the superhero films were not cinema, which was met with a slew of reactions from Marvel fans as well as blockbuster helmers at the LA premiere of his new film, The Irishman, and he doubled down on his comments and said this.
You know, a lot of people, I gotta ask you, talking about the things you did say about Marvel movies, seeing the reaction it got, do you still stand by those comments? How do you feel now?
Well, look, what the point is, in terms of this film, Netflix, theaters, what I'm talking about really are films that are made when, let's say, a family wants to go to an amusement park. That's a good thing, you know? And at the amusement park, there's these cinematic expressions. They're new art form. It's something different from films that are shown normally in theaters. That's all. For them, my concern is losing the screens to massive theme park films. Fine, go, and it's an event. And it's great to go to an event like an amusement park, but don't crowd out Greta Gerwig, and don't crowd out Paul Thomas Anderson and Noah Baumbach and those people. Just don't, in terms of theaters.
And then you have other directors like Francis Ford Coppola coming out, agreeing with Martin Scorsese's original comments, saying when Martin Scorsese says that Marvel pictures are not cinema, he's right, because we expect to learn something from cinema. We expect to gain something, some enlightenment, some knowledge, some inspiration. I don't know that anyone gets anything out of seeing the same movie over and over again. And Coppola ends it with, Martin was kind when he said it's not cinema. He didn't say it's despicable, which I just say it is. So we have some famous film directors here talking about Marvel in a disparaging way. When Martin Scorsese talks about these are like theme parks, what is he exactly talking about?
This idea of a kind of theme park roller coaster ride of a story, which you've said sometimes leaves a too sweet taste in your mouth. Yeah. What do you think is the shift in the industry towards that type of storytelling?
Well, Spielberg said that in the old days, film studios were run by vaudevillian entertainers. They just stood up and by the seat of their pants, they tried to entertain an audience, and then they either laughed or they didn't. But it was the chutzpah of getting up there and doing it that really made the thing exciting. Now it tends to be run by people with marketing degrees, and it's so much money. It's up in the almost $500 million for some of the bigger films, and so people want to secure their investments. They want to lower their risk levels. So as a result, they fall back on formulas. They fall back on actors guaranteeing films. And then to their joy, they discovered, this unpredictable thing called story, we don't need that anymore. All we need to do is make you feel things. Literally call concept artists in and go, we need them to cry. So we come up with things that will make you cry, make you scared, and so on. And they start putting those in around, say it's Thor, not using Thor as an example, it's any cartoon character, you put them in there, and you build your film with these moments around some central comic book or anything, and that's enough. You don't need a real concrete story. It doesn't have to make much sense. Doesn't have to be believable, doesn't have to have meaning even, and your film will have the right effect on an audience. I call those theme park films, and there's a sad number, growing number of those in the industry, usually with the mega budgets attached to them. And what a shame.
Others came out and talked about the Marvel movies as well. Ken Loach says they're made as commodities like hamburgers. He told Sky News, "It's about making a commodity which will make a profit for a big corporation. They're a cynical exercise. They're a market exercise, and it has nothing to do with the art of cinema."
Of course, now a lot of reactions to this by bloggers, fans, other directors, even the CEO of Disney himself, all are opposing this idea. Unfortunately, there's fans out there with some comments saying, "Hey, Martin, I hate you 3000 because we self-project onto people. If Scorsese is saying shit about the MCU, it must be because he's jealous." And he puts, "As much as I love and respect Scorsese, he sounds jelly as f***."
Jelly as guys.
Which sounds completely like an adult. He hasn't had a box office hit as popular and enthralling as a Marvel movie.
And then Mark Hughes at Mark Hughes Films on Twitter says, "Dear fellow press, you can stop asking old guys who don't watch superhero films what they think A/B those films just to stir up clickbait controversy. Quote, old generation of blank resents and doesn't understand new generation of blank is a stupid, cliched topic."
Then John Campea came out with showing a banner of Marvel Studios, Black Panther, Iron Man, and for some reason Wonder Woman off in the corner with two old men yelling, "Rotten kids, get off my lawn." Two old men are resembling Scorsese and Coppola.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
You can't have an opinion on what a movie is because now they're old and out of touch. Some of these filmmakers have made some of the greatest movies that I have personally ever watched. And yet now people are demeaning anything they've done because they're either jelly as f*** or they're old and out of touch. And instead of actually listening to what they're saying, which most should, they're just demeaning them because, I guess, welcome to the internet.
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're at a point where if you oppose something that is accepted by the majority, that you have to absolutely love, whether it's an MCU movie or any popcorn flick for that matter, you can't oppose that. You have to love it. And if you don't, then you're just old and out of touch.
Contrarian attitude type thing. Like, oh, you only hate it because it's the most popular thing. And there is people out there like that, but I think that's far from the truth here. I think what people don't understand is that these are directors, these are some people that have made some of the greatest movies, some of the most famous pop culture movies of all time. And a lot of these gentlemen basically get free reign when they come up with an idea for a movie and they go make the movie they want. Compared to the MCU, it's completely opposite. And whether people want to admit it or not, there is a formula with the MCU. So as Francis Ford Coppola said, it feels like the same movie and over again. And yes, there's very few Marvel movies that actually stick out from the pack. These movies, whether people like to admit it or not, are built off of algorithms, formulas. They're built in committees. It's Kevin Feige and many others overseeing this movie. It's going to be constructed around their universe. So a lot of the cinema, a lot of the auteur look at it kind of gets pulled away from these movies because they're basically factory made. That doesn't mean that they can't be good in any way. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be bad. But it also just takes a lot of what these gentlemen feel that goes into cinema. It takes a lot of that away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of what they have been saying has largely been taken out of context. They are saying that, cinema is changing and that now we're getting into these roller coaster theme park type movies as opposed to something that maybe has a little bit of substance in the story. A lot of these, as the clip that we played earlier, it's more about reactions. What reaction can we get out of you? We found that if people are laughing or crying or there's a jump scare, then they are going to flock to these type of movies and they are going to give it a positive review. There's a lot of market research that goes into this. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that there is obviously a large market for those type of movies, but what you're doing when you continue to cater to that is you are pushing out movies that maybe challenge something and movies that have a little more substance and, as Scorsese mentions, are more auteur as opposed to a film by committee.
The thing that's amazing is Chris is been an amazing producer on the movie because he, I think because, he said to me, he goes, Zach, Hollywood makes two kinds of movies. They make movies by committee and they make filmmaker movies. And he goes, I'm really not interested in these like movies by committee. They suck. And, he's like, the best movies, my favorite movies are, where you can feel the personality of the director, and it's all about that.
And these are momentary feelings of emotion that these movies provide. As it was described, a moment of scared, a moment of cry, but you walk out and they're forgettable. That's not what a Scorsese or a Francis Ford Coppola movie is forgettable. They rely on every aspect of filmmaking to make those movies memorable and to stick in the back of your head for a very long time. Whether people like to admit it or not, there's just a lot of things about the MCU that is extremely forgettable.
Even people like Benedict Cumberbatch come out and pretty much agree with Scorsese's comments. He talks about, I know there's been a lot of debate recently with these very fine filmmakers coming to the fore saying that these film franchises are taking over everything. And I agree. We don't want one king to rule it all and kind of have a monopoly. He added, we should really look into continuing the support auteur filmmakers at every level.
Which is what we have been preaching for a very long time. The thing is when it comes to the MCU movies, it always felt like people say you had to make a movie that way, that there was no other way to make a film, and people trying anything different would be failure. At this point, I think with Joker and its unbelievable success and the fact that it's opposite of a Marvel movie in every facet possible, and its true success shows that there is an urge, there is a need for this in the market, something different. And I think that's what Cumberbatch is for. He doesn't want the same movies over and over again. Same with Scorsese, Ford Coppola, all these other people. They just want some different variety in their ice cream. One of the most baffling reactions, though, was actually by Disney CEO Bob Iger, who seemed to actually get very defensive about this. I don't expect everybody to be the most professional, and I actually thought this was a joke when I first saw it. But his reaction to Martin Scorsese and to Francis Ford Coppola's comments about the MCU, I'm puzzled by it. If they want to bitch about movies, it's certainly their right. It seems to be disrespectful to all the people who work on those films, who are working just as hard as the people who are working on their films and are putting their creative souls in line just like they are. He also continued, are they telling me that Ryan Coogler making Black Panther is doing something that somehow or another is less than anything Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola have ever done on any one of their movies? Come on.
I actually never saw Black Panther. Say what, girlfriend? What you talking about, Willis? Come on, Ross. You never saw Black Panther.
The part that makes me laugh is the fact that nothing against Ryan Coogler, but you just compared Ryan Coogler to Martin Scorsese. I think if you were to ask a handful of people who Ryan Coogler was, they probably couldn't tell you.
And unfortunately, this choice of movie does kind of lead some suspicion of why he picked this specific one, like Black Panther, not Captain Marvel, not Winter Soldier, not the first Iron Man movie. For some reason, he picked Black Panther. Obviously feels like bait, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he didn't. Maybe Black Panther is his favorite MCU movie out of all of them. It's still a Marvel movie. And yes, there is some elements of Black Panther that feel like a Ryan Coogler film. But if you watch like the first Creed and then you watch Black Panther, there's some elements to that you would not think is the same director. And obviously, because that's the formula. That's the MCU formula. Creed is a true Ryan Coogler film.
And much to Scorsese's delight, Kevin Feige is taking over as the Marvel Chief Creative Officer. Woo! This is an excerpt from comicbook.com article. It says, so long story short, Feige is in charge of everything related to creative at Marvel. Comics, television, and film will all report to him. This is the next step in the continued show of faith from the Walt Disney Company. It was revealed recently that Feige would also be producing a Star Wars movie for Lucasfilm, a project that's been a dream of his for some time. So I can't wait to see the Fat Thor comic book series, I'm going to be lining up for that one.
Diabetes Thor. It's going to be the best series yet. Stormbreaker's going to be replaced with an insulin shot. He's heading the comics. He's heading everything now. I don't understand giving this much power to one individual over all your creative properties. It's either going to severely expose him to turn a lot of people against him, because there's no way he's going to be able to make everybody in those worlds happy. Star Wars already started feeling like the MCU, so I don't know what he apparently is going to fix, because he's not much better when it comes to subverting expectations and changing things anyway, which is what everybody was against. I don't think Feige is going to do well with already established properties.
Yeah, insert GIF of Vincent Kennedy McMahon here. When you have someone who's in control of everything, it just all kind of starts to seem a little bland. But at this point, the money's been talking, and Kevin Feige he just keeps pumping out these generic billion-dollar ideas. So I guess that's why they decided to venture down this. And a lot of people, it was funny, I started reading, they were like, oh no, he's going to get overwhelmed. How is he's going to spread himself too thin? How is he going to be able to juggle all of these different properties? Well, if you kind of come up with the same stuff, I guess he's going to try to tie a lot of the aspects in, like comics and the TV, similar to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., into the movies itself. I guess that's cool. But one of the things that a lot of comic book readers have enjoyed was the separation of the Marvel comics and the movies themselves. Because let's face it, a lot of the Marvel comics, if you read Civil War versus the Civil War movie, two completely different things.
We will find out. Scorsese might have to see even more of the theaters being taken up by Disney and others, because right now Disney controls a lot of the screens, which is a lot of the things that Scorsese was against. And now Kevin Feige's in charge of a lot of that. In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.